you have the Kingsman fitting room still available.
So that room was where Matthew Vaughn was inspired to create the movie. I was involved in the orange jacket. We had to create, I think in the end, 8 jackets because of the stunts. The opening scene, it gets completely soaked.
Bond hasn't been bespoke in quite a few years. Do you think he's due to come back to Huntsman?
It is a shame that it's a British brand, the Bond brand, and they're going elsewhere for the tailoring.
Whether you're a lover of classic style or a secret agent fan, there's no better place for tailoring than Huntsman. I'm here today with Campbell, Huntsman's head cutter. Campbell, great to be here with you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. So the Kingsman series started here at Huntsman, but where did you start, Campbell?
I was a fashion student at the Scottish College of Textiles, now known as Heriot Watt, up in the Scottish borders, just south of Edinburgh, a place called Galashiels. I studied a degree in textile and fashion, and then was lucky enough to secure a work placement with the then Kilgar French Stanbury, latterly Kilgar, and started out as an apprentice cutter, striker. So essentially my degree in fashion and textile design was rendered useless, as I had to start again from scratch. But all that information, and specifically weaving, was in there somewhere. And 10 years ago, when joining Huntsman, our chairman and owner Pierre Lagrange said, "You're more than a head cutter. Why don't you be our creative director?" So obviously all that fashion knowledge and training and knowledge of cloth and weaving was then brought into place. So I've got two roles here, head cutter and creative director. Awesome.
So are those roles very different in terms of what's required of you?
Yes, it can be frustrating because you're kind of dipping in and out of each job. Although I set aside one day a week to be creative director and come in jeans and t-shirts, so nobody bothers me. Day to day, there are things that require me to jump in between the two roles, but it can be very rewarding because I've worked in businesses before where a creative director will create a collection and give it to the salespeople to say, go ahead and sell it. Whereas I've got an amazing insight. Everything I do on the shop floor Bespoke, I am getting feedback not just from the sales team but from our clients. I know, intrinsically an instinct, to know exactly what does and what doesn't work. So the head cutter role allows me to be on the shop floor and listen to that feedback, so that we're not wasting money in creating collections of ready-to-wear that no one wants.
Of course.
Through and waste is, I hate it. So I want high sell through and no waste.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense, because that's an element of the Huntsman DNA that's now quite strong, is the ready-to-wear collection.
Yeah, it's a significant part of the business. It's grown fivefold since 2019. It is an accessible extension for the younger client. It's more accessible. You can walk in and essentially the next day have a suit. So we're using the Bespoke DNA, the Bespoke ethos that works for Huntsman and has done since 1849, and feeding that through so that anyone can come in and get a foot on the ladder without having to spend a lot of money.
Excellent. So the other thing that I'm aware of is that the Kingsman collection that is inspired by the film, and some of the pieces are almost like for like reproductions of the things that are within the film series. What's the difference between that collection and the ready-to-wear Huntsman collection in store?
The Kingsman collection is basically made by Mr. Porter and sold on their site, so that's a separate part of their business. Our ready-to-wear is, like I said, it's Huntsman or Huntsman only. We don't wholesale yet, but it's only available downstairs, number 11.
Understood. And you say that it will be ready the next day. Does that mean that you do little alterations on sleeves and waists and things like that?
Yeah, we can turn around alterations quite quickly to make it next day if need be.
Awesome. So there is a difference between the Kingsman collection and the Huntsman collection.
Yes.
And the other thing I know that you do is you have the Kingsman fitting room still available. What sort of experience is that like for clients?
So that room was where Matthew Vaughn was inspired to create the movie. When he came in here as a young adult, his mother treated him to his first bespoke suit, and it planted a seed, and the rest is history, you know. And I was lucky enough to be on set for all three movies, and it was a bizarre experience because the whole store was recreated from plywood in Leavesden. And they borrowed all the props from the stag heads, the clock. Like, it all went and was shipped off to Leavesden. So it was an exact replica of Huntsman.
Wow.
Something.
And for a building as old as this and with as much heritage, I can imagine that was quite a task.
Yeah, a lot of kind of, you know, antique finishes on things, and, you know, added dust, and make it atmospheric, just like it is downstairs.
Did you get to go and check it out?
Oh yeah. I got told off because I went and kind of started picking things up, and for continuity, the person in charge of that went bananas at me. So yeah, I learned that quite fast not to touch anything else after that.
But I understand how that could have been one of those things for you that's like, no, this is a part of my heritage. I want to make sure it's right.
Mm-hmm.
So you were quite involved with the design of the look for the films as well. Tell us more about how that process was.
It was mainly the second one. I was involved in the orange jacket for Tan Egerton. We had to create, I think, in the end, 8 jackets because of the stunts. The opening scene, it gets completely soaked. So that was quite an interesting thing to work on. Matthew Vaughn's actually colourblind, believe it or not. So he, it was his wife that was choosing the specific orange that he wanted. So I had to trawl around. I was in New York at the time and had to trawl around the fabric stores there to find the very orange. So it was a couple of trials, and then they actually had it made, you know, dyed specifically to the orange you see on the movie. Quite rich.
So it was Matthew's insistence, orange jacket had to be done.
Everyone thought it was bananas, but the amount of jackets we've made out of that orange velvet, you know, it's very popular.
Excellent. So that was because it was definitely the standout piece where it was less costume and more clothing because it is a real jacket. It's not something that's unfinished on the inside and things like that, right?
Yeah, it's proper tuxedo dress wear, you know.
Do you have a favourite piece that was featured in the films?
I think working on the third one with Michelle Clapton, the Emmy Award-winning costume designer, that was amazing because we went back in time and took a 1900s cutting book. Silhouettes were a lot different then. Cloths were a lot heavier. We came up with a real, you know, look for Harris Dickinson and Ray Fiennes, and that was for not just for me but for the tailors as well. The team downstairs, it was totally off-piste, and we had to change the way we were making things, the shoulder line. And so that was, you know, Harris Dickinson's long 3-button. That was good fun.
Because that's the thing. I think a lot of people think 3 buttons is very sort of the 90s, but it was actually historically 3 buttons was de rigueur.
Yes,
but they were a lot higher, weren't they?
The reason that things were higher is to keep you warm. The 3-piece suit was your, you know, everyday office wear because there was no central heating.
Of course.
So the higher it is on the breast, obviously it's going to keep you warmer than having it low.
Understandable. So did that also change the way that you made the suits in terms of, was there more handwork involved? Did you sort of eschew the machines, or how did that work
We
out?
had to work the shoulder a lot more, you know, really put more ease into the shoulder, but that we were able to do that because the cloths, Michelle had a real understanding of weight of cloths. So it's not just about the cut, it's the heavy cloths that give you that drape and that period look that certain TV and movie, they fall down in that regard because they're not using the correct cloths for, you know, for the time. So we had some real heavyweight 18 ounce and above tweeds and flannels that you really could work by hand and to get that look, to get that, you know, really sharp shoulder line. Natural, but sharp.
Awesome. That's definitely something that we've noticed when we've reviewed television series. Mad Men is one of those ones where although they're in the 60s, the cloth wrinkles like a very lightweight modern day cloth. Like you say, it's all to do with the drape, and the accuracy of the cloth is something that is often overlooked. So it was awesome to hear that that's a big part. Did it make a difference working with a costume designer who had a real understanding of these things?
Yes. I think Matthew had a lot of confidence in her, and he kind of left us to it. And I think, the small part I was involved in, it was literally reporting to him and Michelle every so often to make sure it was going in the right direction.
So, with regards to the Kingsman element within the world of Huntsman, has that brought in a new clientele for you?
Absolutely. The whole of Savile Row, never mind Huntsman, have got a lot to thank that movie. It's opened the eyes of, to not just a younger clientele, but more international. I think the statistics of people in Korea seeing that movie was like 1 in 3 at one point. It was in South Korea, that is. So it's really brought Savile Row to the fore again, which is great. To see the young people outside, excited to be on Savile Row and outside Huntsman, the home of Kingsman. It's great fun.
Has it influenced what people are getting made bespoke? Are you seeing a different sort of style?
Yeah, I think double-breasted is definitely, coming back again. It's not seen as that kind of stuffy Armani, boxy thing of the past, and you can actually, double-breasted, if it's cut right, can be just as flattering as a single-breasted jacket.
For sure. And you say that you get a lot of tourists that come just to take their photo outside Huntsman.
Yes, Richard Curtis, director of Four Winds of Funeral, Notting Hill, said to Matthew, make sure you buy the premises, because it was his biggest regret was not buying the flat in Notting Hill.
So you said that Richard Curtis said, buy Huntsman, make sure that you own it.
Buy the Hunt, because if we had a fiver for every person that's asked to take pictures, we'd be millionaires. It's whole families and people from all over the world, America, Japan, Mexico, you name it. You get people wanting to take the picture and be at the home of Huntsman, home of Kingsman.
Well, I mean, I think this is a great point for me to admit that I, of course, am a fan of the series. It works very well for me that I'm a fan of tailoring as well. I'm doing my best impression of a Kingsman agent today. But for me, it goes beyond Kingsman. It's also espionage as a genre, I think, is a very stylish one. We've got Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and of course the Bond series. Now, Bond hasn't been bespoke in quite a few years. Do you think he's due to come back to Huntsman?
Well, this is where he was rumoured to have lived, right? His address was Savile Row, so it'd be great to have him back. It is a shame that it's a British brand, the Bond brand, and they're going elsewhere for the tailoring.
So would you outfit Bond differently to the Kingsman agents?
Yeah, I think it's got to be a tighter fit for all the action, and not as tight as Daniel Craig's, but it would have to be something quite slick and to be able to do all the stunts in.
Excellent. When it comes to the British heritage, that is a massive part of the Kingsman series, did you primarily use British-made cloths and elements within the suits?
Absolutely. All the cloths were from, Huddersfield. We've got a selection of about 8,500 cloths downstairs to choose from, and most of them are, to be honest, are from the UK. You can't quite. People try and emulate cloths from around the world, but it's all to do with not just the know-how and how it's made, but it's the water, it's the sheep, it's the wool, it's the raw material, it's the finishing. You can't beat British made when it comes to proper cloth. And in fact, some of the the pinstripe for the first double-breasted suit, that was made specifically for the movie.
So, talking more about your work within Huntsman, you've been Bespoke for a number of years and creative director, kind of in tandem with the head cutter role. How much work do you do within the tailoring department nowadays?
Like I'm 1 day a week I'm creative director, so the other 4 days I'm downstairs, in and out my cutting room and also the tailoring workshop. It's all about communication, and it's a big machine downstairs, and you've got to be communicating with each other and the tailors, because there's lots of hands go into making a bespoke garment. There's 80 hours of handwork. There's me, there's a coat maker, there's a waistcoat maker, a trouser maker, there's a finisher, there's a presser, and it's going back and forth. All the fittings we have, minimum of 3 fittings. So you can imagine I'd love to be able to track just geographically where the garment is in the building throughout its life cycle here. So it's very stressful, but you have to manage that stress and try and smooth out the bumps and guide the team in the best way, most efficient way. Obviously, quality standards must be upheld. We cannot waver. We've got 175 years worth of reputation to be tight. So yeah,
for sure. Could you tell us more what the role of a head cutter is? What your average day looks like?
In and out of fittings, we still have, as well as managing the team, we still have our own book of clients. It's like a hairdresser. I've got clients I've made suits for 25 years. They follow you around. It's expected when you get to a senior cutter role, when you move on, you bring a book of clients with you. Some people will be Henry Poole, Huntsman, Kilger, Anderson Shepherd. They'll be adamant to stay with that company, but because it's all about trust and men being slightly lazy, they don't want to shop around. Once they get someone who knows them and their body shape, then they tend to follow. So I've got obviously quite a big book of clients that I'm looking after day to day, but then we're also looking at suppliers, looking at new talent. How do we work with the talent we've got to make sure that as I said, the standards are upheld? So that's day to day, is just kind of management of the workshops.
Excellent. So that's another element, the fact that you've got this well-oiled machine going on, and it's not just Savile Row. Huntsman does trunk shows across the world, but there's a firmer location in New York.
Yes, 57th on 57th Street is our New York atelier. We opened that 9 years ago, being the first Savile Row company, UK company, Savile Row, to open in New York, permanent residence. So that is fantastic, because customers no longer have to wait 4 months for a fitting. We've got a team of cutters there full time. So everything's sent back, made here in the UK, but it's sent back here to be manufactured, but cut in New York.
I see. Okay.
By a UK trained, Savile Row Huntsman trained cutter.
Understood, because that was going to be my next question, actually, because being a head cutter, what's that like when the work is now split over two rather far apart locations?
Yeah, we still go out, every few months to make sure we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. But we've got a great team here. Super blessed to have a hardworking, real passionate team that it's easy. It's certainly easier than when everyone's here on site. It's easier to work with, because you can just talk straight away and solve a problem.
Of course.
So the guys in New York know they've got that support back here.
Excellent. So it's almost like there isn't the ocean between you.
No, it's remote, but it's a well-oiled machine now.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear it. That sounds excellent, because of course a lot of our viewers are based in America. Therefore, it's useful to know that you don't have to travel all the way to Savile Row. I mean, absolutely do, because it's a great location.
Well, it's nice to do both. We've got plenty of clients who, Texans who will do the triangle. They'll come to London when they're here for Wimbledon or whatever, and then they'll do most of the fittings in New York. And we also do trunk shows within the US. We're in the West Coast. We do Texas, Boston. We're all all round. The guys kind of feed out around the States.
Awesome. Is there a difference between the American client and the British client in terms of what style they tend to go for, out of interest?
The Americans love the bolder the better tweeds. You know, they want that iconic look that's Huntsman and Huntsman only, you know, bolder the better. UK clients are a little bit more low-key.
Okay.
It's all about subtleties, and they want people to know it's been made for them, but you have to really kind of look twice.
It's part of the club.
Yes.
You know that it's a Huntsman because you probably have one too.
Yeah, the US clients are like that as well, but we do have some colourful characters, you know, that like to show it.
The Flash the Huntsman Tweeds. Because that's another big part of your heritage, is the fact that you have this incredible collection of tweeds that are specially woven for Huntsmen. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, you can see in the ledgers, these go back to the 1900s. Forever, Huntsman has had cloth made specifically for us. I mean, I always think it's quite a unique club to belong to if you have got a Savile Row garment. Huntsman is another step, and then a Huntsman garment and a Huntsman only cloth. There's only about 30 of those garments walking around the planet at one time, so it's a really niche club to belong to. So our old head cutter, former head cutter Colin Hammock used to go to Scotland every summer on holiday, and he would go to round the mills commissioning the next round of annual tweeds collection. So you would work with the Isle of Will Mill, companies up in Perthshire, Hunters of Brora. So it's in our DNA that you can spot a Huntsman check from a mile away. You know, they're quite unique. So it's important to keep that DNA running through and not go too off-piste and too modern. It's got to be, you know, a Huntsman design.
Sure. Now, with the design of the Huntsman tweeds and the checks, during COVID, of course, I was on Instagram far more than I would be in my average day. And it's when I came across the designer tweed competition that you do. I thought that was such a fantastic initiative. Perhaps you can tell us more.
Well, it's on its fifth year now. We basically let people run riot with some colouring pencils we give them like a template of 4 or 5 different designs, and the stories that come out of those, you know, it's from all over the world. We had a lady in the US who owns her own steak restaurant, and out walking her dog, she came up with the story behind her tweed. The red of the cardinal, the bird there, the cardinal's eggs is blue, and then we've got another chap who inspired his tweed from the Batman movies.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, big Batman fan too. So
purple. And
it wasn't mine, but
the latest winner's a beautiful red and rust. It's downstairs. You'll see it. And actually, we're runner-up this year because there were 2 very close. You know, it was a close decision, so we commissioned the runner-up in a linen instead of the woolen tweed. Yep, and that will actually feature as part of our Spring/Summer 25 ready-to-wear collection. And that was based on a gentleman who's a pilot for Qantas, and when he travels to Sydney from Perth, to keep fit and in shape, he runs around Sydney Harbour. So all the colours are from Sydney Harbour. Yeah, so it's amazing where all these designs and ideas come from. You know, it's not just, doesn't have to be Scottish, you know, or British.
So has there been one of these competition tweeds that you're like, actually, they're onto something and we should probably make more of this? Or do you just make it as a limited run for the winner?
We'll make 30 metres, but sometimes we up the quantity because we know it's going to be a good seller.
I see. Okay. Okay. Any of them that you've been like, I'm going to get a jacket in that, or?
Both this year's, and actually I've got a pair of +2s in the previous years. Yeah, the winner of this year is really nice. It's traditional, but it's very, very subtle, but really effective.
Excellent. So with that in mind, and talking about the clothes that you own that are Huntsman, do you tend to make your own clothes, or is that something that apprentices get involved with?
I use the team downstairs, so they will, with specific coat makers. When you have a client who orders regularly, you always try and keep the same coat maker, same trouser maker with that client. So I tend to let them do it and use the same coat maker over again.
I see. Okay, so we've got to talk about the craziest garments that you've been asked to make.
I had to make a flame retardant cotton driving suit for the Mila Migla, based on a 1930s design. That was really cool to work on. Yeah, this garment had to be worn in a bucket seat of a Ferrari, vintage Ferrari, so the cut of the thing had to be completely functional and comfortable. So all sorts of pleats in the back. We cut special sleeves to be able to fit the steering wheel right in front of you. Cinched cuffs when it rained. Cappuccino, espresso money for the quick coffee stops. All types of things that it's just completely off piste. So that was a great project to work from, because it was literally a bunch of pictures and then a load of calico toile fittings to get to the final finished result.
Awesome. So not just suits at Huntsman.
Anything.
Anything.
Our chairman has got his own bespoke tweed ski outfit. The world's your oyster when you come to Huntsman. We'll literally make anything.
Very cool. Do you give the really difficult things to the apprentice cutters and tailors downstairs just to see how good they are?
We try and push them a little bit.
I like that. How many apprentices would you have working at Huntsman at the moment?
Every couple of years we take on at least 3 or 4 coat makers, and the same for the trouser makers. We try and bring the next generation through so that there's no kind of gaps, because when there's gaps, the quality, to be able to maintain the quality, gets more difficult. If we've got a steady flow of people coming through, we've got master trained tailors that will teach the next generation, and that flow of people, with definite goals in mind, makes it even more, got to nurture the future talent. So that way is the best way.
For sure. And with that in mind, I mean, we've got the patterns of so many incredibly famous people, iconic movie stars, singers, you name it, all around us. What do you think the draw is to Huntsman for these people?
I think it's just the tradition, and it's the peace of mind knowing you're coming to one of the best. When I joined 10 years ago, I was going through the ledgers, looking at all the famous people. We've had notable people, and what got me was the amount of people from the great and the good from the wider fashion world that would chose Huntsman as their go-to, the standard bearer. Coco Chanel, Catherine Hepburn, Alexander McQueen, Bruce Oldfield, all these people, these designers had access, Bill Blass, had access to their own ateliers, but they chose Huntsman as the go-to for the wardrobe, basically.
Which is fantastic. I mean, I think everyone that enjoys classic style has seen that iconic photograph of Cary Grant leaving Huntsman with his coat swishing.
Gregory Peck.
My apologies. See, I'm interested in classic style, but sometimes names evade me.
It's a few years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. A little bit before I was born.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So for a new client coming to Huntsman, what would you suggest as the Huntsman cut, the iconic Huntsman garment for them?
So our house style goes back to the hunting jacket. Henry Huntsman himself was a bespoke livery breeches maker, and our cut, our iconic one-button silhouette, is basically from a riding hacking jacket. So when you're on the saddle, you've got the reins, the jacket had to perform then at its best. So we cut a high armhole, quite a strong but natural shoulder line, a long-ish skirty jacket, so it's all up off the horse, and one button and a slant pocket, so that you can get your hands in easily, readily when you're on the horse. All of those points really create the most flattering of looks because your eye is drawn to the narrowest point of the jacket. So the slant pocket and the one button, the roll to the waist, is the most flattering and the most kind of simplistic. And I think our house cut is as modern today as it ever has been. I think lockdown, people are looking after themselves a lot more. No more boozy lunches and late night visits to the bars and clubs. So people are working out more. They want to feel their clothes on them. So that Huntsman look is very relevant today in today's market.
The other thing that I associate Huntsman with, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, is a more structured, kind of a more military kind of feel to a garment. Do you use quite a lot of padding in the shoulders, or do you go for a softer garment?
We'd use a decent shoulder pad. We want to give you a strong shoulder line, but a natural one. We don't try and build you up in any way. But that is what we've been doing forever. We have to be more. We have to move for the times. So if a customer comes in and says, I want something different, I want a softer shoulder, I want less canvassing, we have to do it. Those days of this is what we do, sir, and you can have any colour you want, but as long as it's black, those days are gone. We have to cater for the modern market and make things how clients want to. But for a client coming in, the first suit I would say navy blue or charcoal, one button with a slant pocket, side vents. Then you can get your head round, as a new client, you can get your head round the cut to then go off piste and have the sports jacket, the blazer, the overcoat, morning wear, the black tie. It's the easiest of look to pivot your wardrobe around as I get go to.
What other details would be included within that Huntsman cut? Really fine details like pick stitching or any elements like that?
The way we finish the jacket, we use a 2-hole button. We got specific lining on the inside that we've had, basically made for us since we started. Quite an iconic striped sleeve lining. But really, it's the cut that says. People say, why is there no label on the inside? Well, there is a label in the pocket which gives you the order number and who cut it and when you ordered it. But I always say that the cut of the suit is the label of the house.
Understood. Now, speaking about labels, I'm aware that with ready-to-wear garments, it's become more on vogue to put the label a little bit more prominently within the garment. Do you do that at Huntsman with your ready-to-wear collection?
No. We have a label in the ready-to-wear, but it's under the outbreast, or under the in-breast on the inside, quite subtle.
So the customer still feels like they're as close to Bespoke as they can do, but perhaps if they wanted a garment quicker than Bespoke is able to achieve, that's quite a nice feature, actually. Yeah. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
So another detail of a Bespoke suit would be the trouser. I think it's something that's potentially overlooked by a lot of people as to how good a Bespoke trouser can be. Tell us more about the Huntsman trouser. People
think trousers are easy, but actually they're not. You can ruin a good suit with the wrong fitting trouser by having a waistband or a rise in a trouser that's too high or too low. You can undo all the hard work that the jacket on top is doing. So really, trouser cutting is the old adage is it's 4 seams in a bar of soap. That coat makers would poo-poo, the art of trouser making, but it's quite a difficult job to get right. Once you cut a curve into a trouser, it's very difficult to undo. So the lines in a trouser is where you get the flattering look. And the higher the rise is, you want to get a nice high rise like you're doing an armhole. That said, you don't want to be singing in a high voice in the church, not too high, but if the trouser rises just right, it can lengthen the inside leg, therefore give the wearer more more height, more lift. Just like we do in the jacket, a higher armhole, yes, it's more comfortable, acts like a hinge, you take less cloth with you when you move, but that height is what gives you a longer waistline to the jacket, and that's what we were trying to achieve in a trouser. We cut the rise just right so that it's, you know, it's easier to walk and move. And also things like the bottom width and pleats or no pleats, where you wear the waistband of your trouser, they're all, it's down to, there isn't a Huntsman trouser, it's down to the client and their needs. Some people want, you know, a wedding suit, you want no stride in the back, you want it completely looking its best when it's stood up. Same with dinner suits, they're not built for comfort. You should be, you know, you're more comfortable when you're stood up. They're meant for peacocking. But you get the guy who, you'll say, look, this is my day-to-day office wear, I want it comfortable, so you cut more straight into the back. And we've seen a real resurgence in pleats, I think. People are wearing a lot more pleats because they are a hell of a lot more comfortable than the flat front, day-to-day, that is.
For sure. So you say the details are really down to the client, but it's all about the cut and the fit of the trouser that makes it Huntsman.
Yeah.
So Huntsman is one of the houses on Savile Row that I definitely look towards as being a very modern brand, considering the amount of tradition on the row. Would you agree that the row is starting to follow your lead in that direction?
Yeah, the houses have to adapt and evolve. We have to make sure this streets are here for another 200 years. You know, from now, you have to recognise that wealth patterns have shifted, and you do get the 20-year-old coming in who has money to be able to buy bespokes. So you have to educate clients a lot more than used to in the past. You know, when I started in Savile Row, certain houses had curtains in the window. You couldn't actually see in.
Really?
You had to be recommended by recommendation only, I think. Fred Astaire was one of these Hollywood icons, was turned away from Gives and Hawks because he didn't have a recommendation. So those days are gone. We have to recognise where and who our customer is. We have to be a lot more focused on being accessible.
And the availability of online is something that you've embraced. The fact that you're in New York, Huntsman really feels like it's saying we love tradition, but we're here for the modern age.
Yeah, I think it can be done. A lot of houses have failed because they've tried to do, you know, gone down a route, a ready-to-wear route, you know, throwing all their eggs at that, and it once you go down that route, it's very hard to come back. Nigh on impossible, is what I found. So we have to be mindful that this 175-year-old business is, you know, it's got to be looked after. You know, it's like Stradivarius violin. You don't just come in and start retuning it. You got to be careful that you don't ruin it.
For sure. And if you had any advice for a brand new client coming into Bespoke that comes into Huntsman, what would it be?
Just relax. You know, it's quite an intimidating facade, but actually once you get inside, it's a lot more warmer. And trust the people that work here. That, you know, we're here to help and here to guide you through. There's many pitfalls to be had with Bespoke, but you're in safe hands here.
Excellent. And there's no secret switches or anything on the wall that's going to take you to the world of a secret agent?
Unfortunately not.
Understood. So that part's fantasy, but the beauty of a bespoke suit is very much reality.
Yes, that will always be here.
Excellent. Campbell, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. You're welcome.